Good morning or early afternoon, depending on where you're watching this at. Just got finished watching the NAR Board of Directors meeting. Got a few changes that we'll probably see in the January 2023 Code of Ethics. A lot of good information there, a lot of great speakers. Hopefully you have a chance to listen to those online if you weren't able to attend. Hey, today we're going to look at something that's part of my wealth building school. I have a little phrase I call wealth building school, C-O-O-L, in wealth building school. And I thought I'd share today some tips, 5 of them to be precise, and 5 rules, as well as some basic components and tenets of effective negotiations. If I had an objective for today, I'd like to fan your negotiation flame to such an intensity that the hot water of mediocrity with money is converted into the steam of outstanding wealth building. It's a lot of words, but a lot of people are mediocre with their money and don't understand the power of negotiating. As I said in my announcement on Facebook for this program, I believe you can negotiate anything except water bills. It's the only thing I've not been able to negotiate on my personal home, on all my rental property, or find anybody who's been able to negotiate a better rate. Now, if I have a well on a property, that's a different story. But for most of us, we pay a water bill. And for many of us, that water bill can be quite expensive. And I always can only use energy-saving devices. So part of my negotiating of my wealth is to make sure I'm using energy-saving toilets, energy-saving faucets, energy-saving shower heads, anything with water, even energy-saving washers to do the clothes with. Other than that, everything else. And boy, we're going to share some stories today. We're going to talk about some words that came out of Harvard's program on negotiation. One of my biggest, strengths is having been involved heavily in understanding what Harvard does in its program on negotiation, because it applies so much to real estate. As you know, I am a master trainer for the Real Estate Negotiation Institute. We train agents in 2 designations related to negotiation effectiveness or negotiation expertise. And I've been negotiating all my life. A large part of my wealth building is based on the fact that I'm able to negotiate. Because here's the key. Any dollar you save by negotiations, first of all, you should put right into an investment plan. If you save a lot of money, you should not just spend that money, because you would have spent it and wasted it by paying the higher price for the television, the gasoline, the food, whatever it is. You got to get into a habit of any money I save, I set aside into an investment, or if nothing else, a safe fund, a set aside for emergencies. And guess what, people? I hate to use the word emergency, but we're going to be in an emergency very soon called a recession. It looks like we're slowly bringing interest rates down. We're slowly seeing unemployment go up, and that tells me we're on the right track. There's something called in economics an inflation-unemployment trade-off. You want low inflation, you have to have higher unemployment. We're seeing a lot of companies laying off. We're seeing companies closing down. We're seeing the number in the unemployment rate rising slowly. We're also seeing the inflation rate coming down. No doubt we have one more increase in the Fed this year, which hopefully will then start to taper off. At least many people feel already this last one will not be as bad as the previous 3 or 4. With that said, that's the foundation. So I'm going to use some words like ZOPA and BATNA and SAM and other principles that were created through some strong programs at Harvard. The beginning of the process was something called Getting to Yes by Roger Fisher, Bill Urey. If you've not read a book on negotiations, that's your foundation. That's your foundation. The next thing we're going to do is look at, again, some of the issues related to the big ask, because that's what negotiations is about. You have to ask. In fact, after this call, I'm going on to a Zoom call with an author of a book I'm going to be mentioned in several times called The Big Ask. He's interviewing several people, from people on Shark Tank to successful entrepreneurs and other people who have done certain things that they can share about how they asked and got things. So I'm doing a 2-hour interview with him so you can put it into his book called The Big Ask. Hopefully down the road you'll be able to read it and get some great tips from loads of people who have some stories to tell about how they negotiated better in life by just asking. It's the key word. So as we begin this, realize anything we do today, if you use it, utilize it, and then make a savings of dollars by whatever it is, put that away. If you spend it, you're not building wealth. You would have spent it anyway. Example, I use Gas Buddy. I think a lot of people use Gas Buddy. If I'm traveling someplace, just take a quick peek to see where the gas prices are. So I was out last week, had to go up north from my home, about 20 miles. I noticed the gas station was 70 cents a gallon cheaper than the stations right near it. 20 gallons of gas, $14 in my pocket. Right there, $14 in my pocket. I wouldn't have had if I went to the other gas station. Now, to make $14 after taxes, I may have had to earn $17, $18, $19, or $20. This week, I looked again. That same station is now 20 cents lower than it was. All you have to do is gather some information. But if you don't have any time on your side to do that, you can't gather the information. I'm searching right now for some items for my home. I've been searching the internet and found a price variation of several $100s for the same items, just different companies. We're going to talk more about that. So what I'd like to share with you next is something that I feel is so critical. I created a program a little over a year and a half ago that you've got to learn to persuade before you persuade. You've got to learn to persuade before you persuade. Sorry about that. So obviously, there's something that you have to do that I perceive by reading Bob Cialdini is learn some persuasion techniques to influence people and get them ready to be persuaded so you can negotiate. You got to warm them up and you got to set them up. That's the persuasion process. I may put that program back on in one of our future sessions here in some detail. But the key is it's not just persuading people, it is persuading people. So what are some things you feel you already do, or are you not doing any persuasion? You just jump in. It's kind of like the warm-up, the setup. And again, realtors by nature don't warm up and set up. There's a lot of sizzle sometimes in people that persuade. It's not just the steak. That's the persuade. The sizzle is the persuade. See, when I go into that Greek restaurant and I'm ready to order and all of a sudden I see a fire flame up and somebody goes, "Oppa!" Wow, they persuaded me to spend an appetizer of saganaki. Why? Because they persuaded me. We know there's subliminal seduction in movie theaters by blowing popcorn in after they pop it. We know there are different ways and colors that people use. There's a great book by The Hidden Persuaders by Vance Packard, very old, to show you how advertising does a lot of persuasion techniques to get you to be persuaded to go try that product. And just this morning, a mortgage company, if you'd like the name of it, send me a Facebook message after this and I'll give it to you. But this is their verbatim teaser to persuade me or have some of my clients be persuaded to go there and take a look at applying for a mortgage loan. Because we're in a market now where a lot of people are very sensitive to borrowing money. Look at this. Our program is ideal for entrepreneurs, self-employed, realtors, this whole list of people, cash businesses. And you know what their claim to fame is? No income, no job, no worry. That's exactly what was on the headline. No income, no job, no worry. Look at the bottom asterisk. Best of all, due to no income or employment required, we experience fast closings for you. If that's not a persuasion technique to get me to click in 3 steps and apply, wow. I've never heard of this mortgage company. I didn't check anything about them. They're licensed. So they're licensed every other mortgage company, at least in the state of Illinois and probably in other states. But look at all the people they're appealing to. Employed, self-employed, unemployed, attorneys, doctors, politicians. They've covered every cash businesses, volatile income, disqualified income, marriage, divorce, bankruptcy, probate, clients with a lot of equity in their home, and so many others. People, that is one of the most powerful persuasion techniques I have seen in the mortgage industry, and just got that email today, and maybe you did also. I don't need to apply for a mortgage loan, but I was tempted just to see what would happen. But the money is there. Now, somebody might say, well, that's very dangerous. That's going to be a problem. Again, that's where you gather information and have some time to realize and maybe talk to another lender saying, hey, what about this program? Can you do this? I don't know how you want to handle that for your clients or for yourself. Because remember, in Wayne's world, we look at buying two income properties for our own exit strategy every year, so that you always have more and more passive income in your life every year and less earned income, to a point where all your income is passive and you can create a lot of time freedom. My guess is next week, my program is going to be on wealth building and time management. Because freedom happens with wealth, and freedom gives you control of your time. You master your time, you master your life. You waste your time, you waste your life. So, wow, I just got this morning. With that said, let's jump into something I thought we might want to spend some time on, and that's just the 5 little rules I'm talking about. This is rule number 1. Excuse me, this is tip number 1. Always be negotiating. Many people have said if you don't get what you deserve, you're going to have to negotiate for it. And boy, is that so true. If I don't ask, I don't get. Yet there's some times where I feel the price is fair and it's a win-win. I don't need to save an extra 25 cents on an eBay bid or an extra $1 on an eBay bid. I would like to win. If I do my research and look at the prices and past bids from other products similar that have sold, I'll have some idea of what I'm probably going to have to pay. And I reach my maximum. Always be negotiated. People do business with people, and it's essential that realtors understand this is going into any venture. You got to have the right people at the right time in the right place and know how to negotiate. So what you're looking for is, first of all, for you to develop some what we call collaborative negotiation strategies. Collaborative, not competitive. Competitive is win-lose. That's not good negotiating. Meeting people halfway isn't really negotiating. Look at the television infomercials. They make the pie bigger. I can buy one at this price, but I can buy another one for just additional shipping and handling. I can buy these 5 pots and pans, but just wait. Here's 10 more pots and pans. Here's an extra this. Here's an extra that. They just keep piling it on. In life, you don't get what you deserve. You get what you negotiate. And then they give you one less payment. We'll pay your first payment. We actually have another lender who's advertising now something that's going to be a part of the next few months, the buy down. We'll talk about that later today. I'm very heavily focused on 3-2-1 buy downs, and now it might be the time to use those again instead of price reductions. But always be negotiating. So I have a few invaluable tips that will help you get ahead in life. When we say always be negotiating, you can't be doing this in a competitive way. It's got to be a win-win. Maybe it's a nibble, a little bit here, a little bit there. Maybe it's a broken record. Maybe it's a process that gets you to see how they feel and put yourself in their shoes. Likes, like likes. But above all, here's the secret. Listen. People don't want to hear you. They want to be heard. Point blank. Period. Case closed. If you want a good deal, you have to listen. You have to let them talk. I learned something a long time ago in negotiating items, which means I'm negotiating wealth. It's dumb to act smart. It's smart to act dumb. Because I make them feel like they're winning when really I'm winning. Because I'm listening. I ask a lot of questions. That's why the book I have a chance to be listed in and sharing some thoughts is called The Big Ask. If you don't know how to ask a lot of open questions, not open questions, open questions, easy to remember. It starts with a W. Who, what, when, where, why, which, how. How is just who spelled wrong. Listen to what the other party needs and find a way to accommodate those needs. Zig Ziglar says it so beautifully. You can have anything in life that you want. Just help enough other people get what they want. That's all it's about. That's negotiations in a nutshell. You got to give people what they want and you'll get what you want. What do we do in sales? We negotiate a price, buyer, seller are happy, we get paid. I have a closing tomorrow. On the market 4 days, a couple months ago, it's closing. Buyer's happy, seller's happy, I'm happy. You know the feeling. Again, the ask is the key. How can I help you is kind of a phrase that's used too much, but at least it gets them thinking versus may I help you? Because they could say no. See, the how is an open-ended question. Maybe a what or a where or a when or something else. Simply ask and let them answer. And ask your questions in what I call a gutsier manner. You got to ask very safe questions at the beginning. People will talk, they don't feel threatened. You ask somebody something too quick before they are comfortable with you, they clam up. We're going to call that a stall or a hesitation in a few moments. Listen. I don't know what else to tell you except the power of listening is best remembered by taking those 6 letters and rearranging them. Maybe it's ironic that when you rearrange the words listen, it creates a new word spelled S-I-L-E-N-T, silent. You cannot be listening when you're talking. And boy, we as realtors are as a group guilty of talking a lot and not listening enough. You were born with 2 ears, 1 mouth. There was a reason. You're supposed to listen twice as much as you talk. Are you doing that? Or do you have 2 mouths and 1 ear? You just keep talking and can't hear what they're saying. You have to care about the needs of others. Caring about what others care about is what caring is all about. A good listener cares about the needs of others. A good listener will take notes. Because if you start taking this, wait a minute, let me write that down. That's a good idea. They get happy because you're listening. That's an important point. You're going to write it down so I don't forget it. You'll be remembered more, and you'll have a much better struggle in the process of a fair fight. See, negotiation is fair fighting. It's not arguing. Competitive people argue. Collaborative people fight fair. Great book called The Intimate Enemy by Bach, B-A-C-H. Teaches you in a short paperback book how to fight fair. And one of the key components in the fighting fair mindset is listening and making sure by reaffirming what you heard is what they said. Because sometimes what you heard is not what they meant, and what they meant is not what they said. Communications are tough, but you've got to listen. Rule number 3. This is going to be an interesting one. The word between is many times overlooked. People will give you ranges. In fact, some of you that have been in the business for a while remember value range pricing. I think Prudential was the first franchise that started it. And some people, I think in some markets, still feel it works. You'd see an ad in the MLS and there'd be a price range. This price to this price. This is where a lot of people fail. See, don't be out there and give somebody a tentative number. Because if you say 5 to 8, they're going to look at the 5. That's what killed value range marketing. People understood, why would somebody pay that price? Doesn't make any sense. Unless you have a situation like we did in the last year where we have not enough supply and too much demand, then the market determines the prices go up. You don't have to have a range. So basically, understand estimates that you give. Be careful because they could come back to bite you in the ankle. So a price range to me is not the best way to negotiate and build wealth. Now you do need some room for growth. Many of you may know that many retailers, probably more so in women's wear than men's wear, mark up so they can mark down. We see this in a lot of furniture stores. We see this in the jewelry market. We see this in the women's clothing market. So when they come down 50%, there's still enough money to make the profit they want. I've been watching Menards, which is a hardware chain that may or may not be in your market area. It used to be every so often they'd have 11% sale. I'd have to time it to make sure I'm buying things. Like I'm doing some remodeling of some bathrooms in some buildings. So I got to get some bathtubs this week. I wanted to make sure that there was an 11% sale at Menards. And there is. Therefore, I can go to Home Depot and buy it cheaper, and they'll match the 11% rebate. See, that's wealth building. May not sound like a lot, but if I can get 11% back on something that costs less, and I'll give you the best example. We're at a season now where mice creep into garages. And so what's the best way to keep mice out of a garage? So I asked a pest control guy who services my apartment buildings. He said there's a product in the market called, well, let's leave it alone, but it's a product that's out there that's called something special. It was $33 at Menards. It was $24 at Home Depot. And I'm going to get another $2.50 back when I fill the 11% rebate. Now, if I take that $12, $13 and put it away, that's wealth building, a little at a time. See, success by the inch in wealth building is a cinch. Success by the yard in wealth building is very hard. Making that big buck overnight. That's why I'm more of a get rich slowly person. I like time on my side. That's why I love buying 2 properties a year and getting you to buy 2 properties a year so that over 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30 years, you'll be in a position of a lot of equity and a lot of properties that are paid for with a lot of passive income coming in. Look at the next one. Don't give people some kind of an indication like you're shutting off negotiations. I think we're close can be very much of a bad negotiating technique. It's like you've got some kind of a deadline. It makes you look to be too eager and come off as desperate. There's many other ways that also can do that. All I'm saying is the person who has time on their side is a winner in the long run. Because the more time I have in negotiating wealth, the more information I can gather. The more information I can gather, the better decision I can make. See, I'm in no hurry to buy those items for my home. I don't need them right now. In fact, that's the key also to building wealth. Don't buy anything or invest in anything when you have to. You're going to pay a higher price. Make sure the deal's good enough that their party is the one who's eager to close. So you've got to make the pie bigger so they feel they're getting a better value for their money. Starbucks does not sell small, medium, and large. They hate when you ask for the large. It's very confusing to compare the sizes unless you're a regular Starbucks customer. You go to Starbucks for the first time, grande, this, that, these, and those. You just want a large coffee. And some people say large is this, somebody else says large is that. The big gulp. It's a big drink. Just don't point out the time clock. And here's the last little tip. Second last, throw out the first number. People tend to be afraid to be first one to do something. Just a moment. Sorry about that. A lot of people have an opinion that you don't want to be the first one to put a price out. I learned the hard way. I always thought I want somebody else to start the negotiations. So I'd wait for somebody to give a number and then I could react. That old first person that talks loses theory. Well, I found out that's not true. Example, many years ago, I'm looking at a bar for my rec room. Saw it. It was on sale, several $1,000s off. I had put a deposit on a credit card at a game store that sold pool tables and bars and recreation equipment. And between the time I put it on my credit card, and by the way, they were asking me to continually pay cash, give us cash, give us cash. And I don't like to use cash because I like record keeping. I like to be able to complain effectively and asking for a refund by charging it. But I know that's harder and harder these days. But anyway, company filed bankruptcy. Thank God I was one of the people that used a credit card. I got my deposit back after about 60 days. But then I find out that everything's being auctioned off about 30 miles from my home at a warehouse. So I'm going to go there because my bar is there. I already knew I knocked down $3,000 off the price. And so I went there. I'm there. They're going through all this stuff. It's a big warehouse of pool tables and games and chairs and bar stools and bars and you name it. And God, it's like, when are they going to get to my bar? I see it there. Guy's driving around in his cart. The last thing that day, the last item that day was my bar. Oh, finally. And a lot of people left already, so I thought it'd be easy. Less people bidding. Everything looked good. And so auctioneer said, need a bid? First bid. Come on, give me 1,000, give me 1,000, give me 2,000, give me 3,000, give me an open bid. Went through the whole, I can't talk like an auctioneer, but you know how they talk. And I was quiet. And somebody finally out loud opened the bid, 500. And before I could even think what to do, the auctioneer said, sold. I'm going home. I'm tired. That could have been me. I learned that I could have had that bar for $500 and saved thousands more. He was tired. I didn't know he wasn't going to take other bids. I thought it was even illegal. So what did I have to do? I got to minimize my losses. I know what I was going to pay originally if they wouldn't went bankrupt. So I basically told the guy that bought it, how would you like to make a quick $1,000? I'll buy it for $1,500 from you. Now I gave out the number because I could go higher. Let's see what he would say. I want to watch his eye movement. He said yes. So I still got a great deal, but I could have saved $1,000. I learned at that point, throw out the first number. I'm not that upset about that because I saw how it cost me an extra $1,000. Now, could there be times when you don't want to do that? I'm sure. There's always exceptions to every rule. There always is. With that said, this is the key. This is the key in investing. This is the key in being effective in what you do in building wealth. You got to have leverage. That's true in life. That's true in real estate. That's true in buying a car. And I think the key is to realize that we're tending in our own mindset to buy on emotions. That's what everybody's trying to sell us on, emotions. When I teach negotiations, I talk about the three most powerful emotional buying motives: love, ego, and gain. LEG, give your presentation leg appeal. Because obviously you become emotional, but then you justify on logic. But a lot of times you get taken advantage of. That's why auctions sometimes overbid. I don't know if you're aware of this, but many times you can go on eBay and instead of bidding in a bidding war, you can go to that seller's store and buy the item cheaper. I bought cue sticks, very nice, very professional cue sticks, cheaper, going directly to that eBay buyer's store and buying directly from them than what they were selling for when he was bidding them up. Information. See, because if you become emotional, you make it much easier for the other party to read you. That's why you don't argue, you fight fair. When you start getting your adrenaline up and your face starts turning red and all the other things happen, you can't think rationally. And a good wealth builder is always looking at things rationally. I've been preaching for the last 4 months, some rational approaches to winflation, winning inflation. It's hard assets. It's hard assets. And every time I look at what I basically preach, I realize I could have even more. Food storage is the best example. I wish I would have bought even more of some of the non-perishable items that now I'm out of. The cans of this and the cans of that. But sometimes I get lucky and they're on a special sale. But in most cases, everything's costing me a lot more. If I could have stocked up on another 50 of something or 30 of something, I would have saved even more money and put it away. It's kind of like, I wish I could maybe have a few more gallon gas tank right now to put in 25 gallons instead of 20 gallons. I'm saving 80 cents a gallon. Another way to establish leverage is to constantly be aware of current events. Again, this is what we're doing now. We're in a method of inflation. It's coming down. Fed is still convinced it's going to be a while, but the balloon is slowly being released of its air, called inflation. Too many dollars chasing too few goods. We talked a couple of weeks ago about some of you putting in any amount from $10 to $10,000 in the I-bond to get 9.62% as a way to build wealth in a time when investments aren't that there. Short-term CDs. I would not buy a 3-year CD personally. I might buy a 3-month CD, or if I could, 3-week CD, but those are usually for investors and brokerage houses. See, inflation and interest rates are causing more effectiveness in negotiating. And COVID-19 also created that. So, establish leverage. Now, those are pretty simple concepts if you go back and look at all those in the process. So with that said, let's change the pace a little bit and actually take a look at your brain. Remember we said people buy on emotion and justify on logic. If you're a left brain person, you're detail oriented. If you took a disc profile, you're steady or compliant. You use words like logic and rationalization and analytical, and you're objective. There's a lot of words here that describe you. I bet you if you look down that left side of the screen, you can see many words that are you if you're more of a left brain person. I am right brained. In fact, I don't think I have much of a left brain. My part is right here. My right brain is loaded. That's kind of like my part is where my brain is, I'm convinced. So take a look at that when you leave today. Look at left brain articles and right brain articles and see how you feel about who you are. But right in the middle, you see right in the middle, those bridges, those are called corpus callosum. And to be an effective negotiator and wealth builder by negotiating, you got to realize people like you are crossing back and forth from the right brain to the left brain. But most of us buy on emotion and justify on logic. A good wealth builder looks at things from a rational approach and doesn't get that emotional right now. It's a little bit different. It's kind of tough to build wealth emotionally. The too good to be true deal. That's an emotional mindset that a lot of people have lost a lot of money on. If it's too good to be true, it probably is. Research. That's That's wealth building from the brain perspective. But there's a lot more to that. But you need to understand how your brain is working, and you got to sometimes stop yourself from being too emotional, getting caught up in everything, and saying yes too fast or agreeing too high of a price. And that's why auctions work so well on eBay, and that's why auctions work so well in life, because people get really into this. So that's an important aspect of wealth building, is how your brain is working as you're going through your negotiations. So what do we have left? Well, we have some rules. And I think I opened the day by reminding you, in my mind, everything is negotiable except water bills. And if you can find a way to negotiate water bills without having to use energy-saving devices, then I'd appreciate having you on as a guest speaker in future Mondays. But more importantly, you've got to know, and I mentioned the word ZOPA earlier, the zone of possible agreement. How much will you pay as the buyer? How high will you go? How low will the seller go? And there's some great principles in negotiation training to help you understand that as a rule in wealth building. How low will they go? How high will I go as buyer seller? Whatever that case might be. Because once again, every dollar I save by finding that sweet spot so that I'm giving the seller what they want at a minimum and getting what I want at the same time. We're talking to Ziegler again. So understand there's a bottom line. Now you can research that stuff. You can find out what people are paying for things. You can see eBay, to me, is the best MLS for consumers. You can go back and look at all kinds of sales by looking at the completed and sold numbers on any eBay item. You can see what the market's been paying. That gives you some idea what to put down for a make an offer in the process. You can see what other things are selling for in places. Because I buy many items over and over, I have a pretty good idea when one comes up on sale. I know right away that's good. I buy a lot of K-cups for my coffee machines. I know what's a good deal for 100 K-cups or 92 K-cups of a certain brand. And I know right away when I see that one, I might as well just take a look and order right now. Because if everything looks good and I'm not being misled, that's a great price. But sometimes there's a little problem with excessive shipping, or maybe something that's almost out of date. But some stuff doesn't make a difference on. But boy, that's a powerful concept. That's a powerful concept. The ZOPA. Number 4 is what Harvard calls, what I call the BATNA, BATNA, the best alternative to a negotiated agreement. Can you walk away? The power of the walk away is amazing. We're all realtors, I'm assuming here. I have a philosophy that says I don't need them all, I don't want them all, and I ain't going to get them all. I may have to walk away because I want bona fide buyers and saleable sellers. Otherwise, I can't afford to waste my time, energy, and money with either party. Stop and think how many times you didn't have a bona fide buyer or saleable seller and how much time, energy, and money you went through. You can't build wealth if you're giving up time. You can't build wealth if you're giving up energy, because you'll be tired sooner. And boy, you can't build wealth if you're spending a lot of money. See, we got a lot of people last year got spoiled because their gross commission became their net commission because they had very few expenses. Some people didn't even put pictures in the MLS. It sold that fast. Some people didn't order a drone shoot. Some didn't make a 4-color brochure. Some didn't even have a broker open and serve food. Their gross was their net days on market. The shorter the days on market, the more wealth you have built by not spending money. Now, next year's going to be different. We're already seeing some examples as people build their business plans and do their vision boards. Hopefully you're doing yours. We're looking at some different numbers. We already have some people that can't afford to buy or have to look at different places to buy or just stop looking at all. But those are powerful concepts. See, that's the BATNA. And the ZOPA is the zone of possible agreement. What's going to be the baseline? Now, I mentioned the stand or the stall. As you're negotiating wealth by trying to get a better price or better terms. Remember, there's nothing that can be hurt by getting terms if you can't get the price. So I mentioned the 3-2-1 buy down. Now, it was always great when we had high interest rates. I just talked to a lender last weekend who's now suggesting some buy downs. And one of the mortgage companies online just offered, at least for the first time yesterday I saw it, 1% of the interest rate they're cutting off for the first year. They're giving you a 1% buy down. That's what they're doing. But if you've not used a 3-2-1 buy down before you did a price reduction, if those are available, you'll find out you're much better serving your clients, a much better wealth building strategy for your seller to walk with more money for the same amount of out-of-pocket cost. A price reduction of $3,000 or $4,000 or $5,000 is nearly as effective as a 3-2-1 buy down costing that much money. And I'm not here to talk about that. I'm here to suggest you find out from somebody, a lender specifically, how buy downs work if you don't know. But number 5 is very simple. Listening, asking in a nice way. Those are things just to be courteous. People don't need confrontation as much as they need courtesy. Listen, that's courteous. Ask, that's courteous. Let them talk. That's courteous. And boy, if you let them talk, they love to talk. So understand this, Mr. and Mrs. Somebody. Could you go over that again one more time for me to make sure I understand that? Be glad to. See, there's money makers out there, and they're based on the fact of these 5 rules. Now, for some of you, this may have been underwhelming. I knew all that. I'm sure you did. But are you using all that to its potential? And some of you are overwhelmed. Oh my God, rules and tips and all kinds of stuff. ZOPA, BATNA, SAM. So we've got to contend with things that happen. See, the key is a win-win strategy. So the SAM model is a win-win strategy. I talked about a hesitation or a stand or a stall. They're called all different words by different people in different articles, different places. They all basically the same thing. A person, as you start trying to build wealth and want to get some information, oftentimes will hesitate or they'll stall you because they don't feel comfortable yet. They're hiding for whatever reason they don't feel they can make a decision right now to work with you, or to get involved with you, or sell you at that price. They're hiding for whatever reason, the real reason they don't feel they can bring that together. What they're doing is hiding their real feelings. And as a wealth builder, you've got to slowly understand what their real feelings are. That's not easy. But look at some of the words here and see how you feel about those words. Are you an optimist or a pessimist? Do you use more logic than emotions, or vice versa? Do you have a winning mindset? Is it a win-win? Over the years of my life, like man, we did a lot of crazy jobs. And so back years ago, I decided to go work at a carnival for a while and kind of get a chance to live that life. And I was working with people with all the games. And we had one game where they would guess your weight or guess the food you had for breakfast or whatever else they wanted to try. You could give them some money. Back then it was $1. And there's all these plush animals you could win. And some people were spending, they wanted to win one of those nice plush animals for a friend, a kid, a relative, a date, whatever. And every so often, somebody would win, i.e. win, because the guy couldn't guess. In fact, Not sometime, almost all the time, somebody left winning because they couldn't guess your weight, couldn't guess what you had for breakfast. So you got to pick something off that wall. And every so often, very rarely, some people got lucky and they guessed right and the person lost, but they got a consolation prize. But I learned something. They left there with this plush animal walking around the carnival showing, what'd you get? Oh, I won this. Guy couldn't guess what I had for breakfast. Great idea. So I'm thinking, well, this is interesting. And so as I learned more about this, I realized that it was $1 to play the game. But the stuff they were giving away cost 25 to 45 cents. So who really won? Every single person that won and paid the $1 got something that it cost the owner of the game 25 to 45 cents. He's going to let you win all day. You can win all day. If you give me $1, I'll give you back 25 cents to 45 cents. See, it's a win-win philosophy. Wealth building is a win-win philosophy. I'd like to leave you with a little story to wrap this up. Years ago, a little boy would walk by a barber shop, and the barber owner would call him in and say, guys, watch this. And he'd take 2 shiny quarters and $1 bill and put them in his hands and fold the fists. And he'd say to the boy, okay, you can have either one you want. One's got $1 bill, one's got 2 quarters, shiny quarters. What do you want? And the kid would think and say, this one. He got the quarters. And he'd leave. A couple of days later, barber would call him back in. Say, okay, same game. $1 here, quarters here. In fact, I'm going to move my hands around. Didn't make it obvious, but he could see where the $1 bill was, where the quarter was. Once again, different hand, different place. Kid always picked the 2 quarters every single time. And he kept saying, see how dumb this kid is? This kid is really stupid. He could have $1 and he's picking these quarters. So one day, one of the patrons saw the boy at a store buying something with his shiny quarters. He says, hey, let me ask you a question. I've been coming to the barber shop for months. Every time I see you there and play the game, I don't understand this. You could have that $1 bill, but you always take the 2 shiny quarters. The young man looked at him and said, sir, if I take the $1 bill, the game is over. Wow. Won't that knock your socks off? He understood if I just take 50 cents many, many, many times, it's better than taking $1 once, because that man wants to win, but I also want to win. See, it's a win-win. I leave you with that mindset. I want you to realize that you need to have some strategies. I gave you 5. I also gave you some rules, and I've only scratched the surface. And we could sit here all day. You probably have a special story on how you went through and built some wealth. But the key is, if you just save money and then spend it, you're not building wealth. It's saving the money and using it in a safe account, set aside for emergencies. And we're hearing many money managers tell us you should have 3 to 6 months of a set-aside fund for next year. That's not easy to do, people. That's not easy to do. Americans are not the greatest savers. We can't delay instant gratification. We got holidays coming up. People want to let go. Credit card interest is getting very, very high. Can you imagine if you are not able to pay your credit card bill in full? I mean, interest rates are approaching 30% on some cards. Some are already above 30%. And you start charging extra amounts and don't negotiate good prices on items for the holidays. Whatever holiday you're celebrating, Kwanzaa, Hanukkah, Christmas, to give away Thanksgiving gifts, how much that's going to cost you, that's going to be the killer. The killer is we have high interest rates at the worst time of the year when people spend some more money than they ever spent before. It's called Black Friday for one reason. Years ago, that was the first day in the entire year many stores got to be in the black. They were in the red for the first 10 plus months. And now people are spending like crazy. Spending like crazy and paying your credit cards in full each month without interest is a wonderful way of proving you want to negotiate wealth. having a few extra cards to use back and forth to postpone payments, as we've talked about. Either way, you've got to be concerned very simply that if you're going to build wealth and negotiate wealth building, you have to basically understand the win-win mindset. Understand the ZOPA, the Zone of Possible Agreement. Understand all the alternatives. And sometimes it's called the opportunity cost. See, just waiting till after the holidays to buy many things that are much less in price. Is Black Friday going to be the lowest price, or will be another price 2 weeks before the holiday season comes upon us? Or are they already out there already? Did the Prime sale, did other retailers match prices? Some are guaranteeing price reductions. So you got to start looking around in terms of how you're going to get the best price. And sometimes if time is on your side and you can wait, there's some better deals. So I leave you with nothing more than my thoughts that I hope you feel were good for you to win-win, to think a little bit, to understand the psychology of negotiations and understanding some of the collaborative techniques. And so winning in inflation means you are looking at a way to have wealth not transferred from you, but to you. And in the same respect, next year when we're in the recession, you want to have wealth transfer to you, not from you. You have to learn to be, if you're going to build wealth forever, always be the transferee of wealth, receiving it, versus the transferor of wealth, losing it. And I'm sure you know, if you've been on that transferor side, how painful it was. Enjoy your week. Spend some time listening to the rest of the speakers that are on all week in Win Inc. And I'll see you next week. It's probably a topic on using time management as a wealth building tool, because that gives me freedom. With that said, I will say have a great day.